Hello and welcome to my review of Chapter 32 of Ragnarok. Now, before we get into the chapter itself, there are two things that I want to go over. The first is that this chapter that I'm going through now is not the high-quality translation done by inept bastards. They only work with the high-quality scans that are released on the first of every month. They have a whole redrawing team and everything. This is a translation done by someone on the Schmaltz Valkyrie Discord server, Pariogo. He did a translation all by himself with the low quality scans. So if you have not read that, I'll include a link in the description of this video. And if you're on the Discord server, be sure to give Pariogo a big thanks for his work. Second thing, I know a lot of you, most of you who watch these videos, are just here for Ragnarok. However, if you're interested in Bleach, Kengan Omega, and Chainsaw Man, I am doing and will be doing reviews for those series. So if you're interested in those as well, subscribe so you don't miss anything. And with that, let's get into the chapter. So starting off right away, we've got Shiva doing some stretches, as he always does, and he's being cheered on by his wives and his son. So we've got his second wife, Partavi, his third wife, Kali, and his fourth wife, Durga, and then his son, Ganesha, who is an adorable elephant man. He's the god of wealth in Hinduism. Now, a few things with these characters. Why is the first wife of Shiva not here? Well, Hinduism works a little differently from most of the pantheons that we're probably a little more familiar with, at least most people, in that all of the gods are basically aspects of higher level gods. So wives 2 through 3 are pretty much like aspects of Shiva's first wife, whose name I can't remember right now, but that's why she's not there. Also, they are really fucking hot. Shiva's harem is unmatched currently. I would say that this, combined with the characters, the guest commentators we have for Raiden, this is definitely the best guest characters that we've had so far for any of the fights. I would also say that his interactions, or the way that these family members of Shiva are interacting with him, are kind of putting me on Team Shiva now. Originally, I was Team Raiden because of like the whole thing with him in Pror, but now, I don't know. I really don't want to watch Shiva get murdered in front of his entire family, or like the important family members anyway. So we'll see what happens. I'm kind of hoping Shiva pulls through on this. But moving on from that, we have the introduction, the cameo of clearly the strongest character in the entire series, that being Frog. The Frog holding up the ritual salt for the start of the sumo match. You can tell, just based off his stance and his facial expression, that this is clearly supposed to be a sort of avatar of the Abrahamic God. So I guess he's finally made his appearance in the form of this frog salt holder. But yeah, sorry Zeus, but this is the new top of the verse. Anyway, Raiden takes a fistful of the salt and like tosses it up in the air, which I guess is a sumo ritual. I don't really know much about sumo beyond what I was told on Discord, so whatever. We go over to Hermes, who is standing in the ruins of the Greek sort of viewing stage, which, if you recall, was destroyed by Zeus in Chapter 30 because he was pissed about Heracles dying. But Hermes is just standing there looking proper as ever. And Loki's sitting around. He remarks about how it's hard to find a bathroom now that the now that the whole building's destroyed. But Loki and Zeus decide to walk off, which is interesting because none of the gods have walked out on one of the fights. So this is kind of actually a big deal. I know Zeus has kind of fucked over Shiva twice now, so he's probably not that invested in how Shiva's doing, but I guess it's probably the morale toll that the loss of two gods has already taken on him. And we'll see that I think it's had a different effect on both Zeus and Loki. Zeus, obviously, because he was related to the two people that have died so far. But for Loki, I think we'll get into different reasons later on. But they walk off, and they both have, like, this killer aura coming off of them. It's a pretty cool shot. But Hermes says that it seems like everyone hasn't been taking the losses very lightly, which is true. It seems like the gods are much more serious now. If you think back to the end of the first fight, when the gods were telling all the humans to, like, bow down and offer their lives to them, this is a big change from what they were like back then. But Raiden smacks his hands together and does a huge gust of air to explode out from him, just like when Shiva landed. But he's getting ready to fight, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry for keeping you waiting." Shiva says, "I'm going to enjoy this." And then we see a panel of Raiden's back muscles, and he says, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure you're going to enjoy this?" And then he charges right at Shiva, who looks very surprised by this. Then we get a double-page spread of Shiva looking surprised and Raiden horizontal in the air with his legs crouched up to his body. Then we get another double-page spread of Raiden fucking drop-kicking Shiva in the face. This is getting off to a fantastic start. So instead of using Shijuhate, which is the 48 basic forms of sumo, Raiden used dropkick. So I guess this was probably one of his banned moves. It was banned, well, obviously for being very strong, but I guess also for not being a fucking sumo move, which makes sense. It seems like Raiden is already from the beginning taking out all the stops. But everyone's like, wow, holy shit, Raiden is really impressive, drop kicking Shiva in the face right off the get-go. But it looks like Ares is saying that Shiva's opponent is a bold man. And when Hermes asks him if he thinks the gods will struggle again, he says, hell no. So it's good to see that after the death of his friend, Ares is resolute. He is confident in the victory of the gods once again. We've gotten a lot of good development after the last fight. So it's going to be interesting to see how the characters continue to develop through the story as things happen. But Shiva does a flip with his arms and lands on his feet. He's bleeding from the nose, so Raiden got first blood on Shiva for the match. And he's like, whoa, alright, I guess that works. This is worth the wait. So, of course, playing into the joke about Shiva continuously getting cucked, but also, Shiva is very excited by battle. It seems we've got another battle-hungry god, which I'm not going to complain too much about, because I think Shiva's probably seems to be more charismatic than, well, definitely more charismatic than Thor. Thor had, like, no personality whatsoever, and Zeus is just kind of an asshole, but I like Shiva's personality so far. But Raiden is charging right at him, not giving him any room to recover, and tries to punch him, but Shiva grabs his fist with one of his lower arms, which shows that Raiden and Shiva seem to be on par, at the moment at least, in terms of physical strength. But then Raiden just comes around and does a right hook and gets Shiva right in the side of the face. pretty mean punch, which then brings Shiva to his knees. It actually hurt him. And before he can do anything else, Raiden grabs onto Shiva's head with both of his hands, his giant fucking hands, and he says, "This is the end." And he knees Shiva in the face. And we have Ganesha and Pavarti, who are scared by this. Pavarti's like peeking through her fingers to see what happened to her husband. But it turns out that Shiva has blocked this attack. And he says, "This fight's far from over." So he breaks out of Raiden's grip, shoves his arms away, and then grabs both of Raiden's arms with his two upper arms, and then punches him in the chest with his lower arms, which looks like the force of the punches actually tossed Raiden up into the air. And Ganesha is excited by this. Shiva's wives are very excited by this. His harem is just adorable. I love them so much. But Raiden twists around and manages to land on his feet. And it seems like Raiden was actually kind of hurt by this. Now, the fact that he didn't have a fucking hole blown in his chest getting punched by Shiva shows that he is very durable, and I have a feeling this is definitely due to his Volant. Oh yeah, of course, Raiden's kicks and punches have managed to actually make Shiva bleed, so it seems so far that at the very least his Volant is allowing his entire body to hurt a god. So, Raiden says he thought he could finish it quickly. Shiva said he thought he could too, so they're both being pretty arrogant. But Raiden thinks about how smooth Shiva is, which he seems to be. He's a smooth talker, he's a charismatic guy. But Shiva's like egging him on to try and finish the fight quickly because Shiva wants a fun fight. Wants a good fun fight. And Raiden says that this is troublesome. It seems like he's having a harder time than he's used to. And he's still like holding his arm in front of his stomach, so I guess that actually really hurt him getting punched by Shiva. But the fact that he survived that suggests that he's probably the most durable of the human fighters so far, which I think the theme will be like unstoppable force versus immovable object. I don't know who will be who right now. Maybe they'll both be both of those things, but seems like it's going to take quite a bit for Shiva to take down Raiden. But everyone's talking about how awesome it was. You've got the Yokozuna, the two that they showed earlier, talking about how awesome Raiden is. And then you have the artist guy that showed up last chapter drawing the grappling between Raiden and Shiva, which is neat. It's always neat to see how some of these the guest characters are reacting to what's happening. But as this is happening, we see a character walking through the halls of the arena. And then we see Loki, who's sitting at like a fountain. He's sitting in like a courtyard, and he's sighing, and says he was waiting for the guy that was walking through the halls. He says, "I was waiting for you, Buddha." Oh, I love this design for Buddha. I wasn't sure about it at first, but then I looked at it for another 30 seconds, and I was like, oh yeah. Oh shit, yeah. This is a good fucking design. I showed this to a friend of mine yesterday, and her initial reaction was, "Who is this gay liberal arts student?" And I'm like, yeah, you know, that's probably the demographic most likely to have achieved nirvana. If I reached enlightenment and didn't give a shit anymore, I would probably dress like Buddha. Also, this is the second time in the last month that we've been introduced to a fighter before their round. I hope they keep doing this. I don't like having to wait years to see new fighters. especially the ones I'm quite excited for, so I hope they do that with some of the other gods. I wasn't even that excited to see Shiva fight, or not Shiva, Buddha fight originally, but now that I've seen his design and that he's like this hipster guy, oh shit, yeah, I'm hyped for that. Um, but yeah, also, Buddha is another pantheon head. So we have 4 of those now. So that's pretty fucking cool. Um, but beyond the implications of Buddha showing up now, which are kind of big, he's talking to Loki and he says, "Don't you want to join it too? The fight. Don't you want to join the fight?" And Loki doesn't answer. So I have a theory about what's going on. I think that when we've been watching Loki for the previous fights, he's been all like, ooh, he's been all giddy and having a fun time watching all this crazy stuff happen. But now that the gods have lost 2 times in a row, and it's been 2 gods that basically no one thought could lose, he's like, oh shit, I could fucking die. I could die. Um, uh, And now he's getting cold feet. He's not sure if he wants to go through with this, which was something that I had hoped we would see with some of the gods. It's very nice to see, at least if this scene is suggesting what I think it does, that the gods are starting to have conflicting feelings about Ragnarok. So hopefully we'll be seeing more about this in the next chapter. But heading back to the arena, Shiva is all excited. He's talking about how great this is, and he says, "Let's have a dance off to the death," which is really funny reading it out loud. But I think this is a reference to something that Shiva actually does in Hinduism. I think it's called like the Rudra dance or whatever, um, which, from what I've heard, is like the dance thing that he does when he's ending the world. Uh, which I think will probably be his final form or whatever. He'll go into the Rudra dance and then he'll go Super Saiyan or whatever. But that's just the mythological connection to that, or I assume the mythological connection to that. But Raiden asks him if he's always this annoying, and he says that his sort of banter is meaningless, which shows that Raiden is more of like a actions over words guy. It seems like he's more interested in the sport itself than he is with like the dynamic between the fighters. But Shiva's like, "What do you mean meaningless? There's nothing as fun and exciting as Ragnarok. Um, what kind of man wouldn't like an event as amazing as this? Any man would be outcast as a fool for not seeing value in it." Um, so we have gotten quite a bit of insight into Shiva's character now. He's a fun-loving guy. He likes fighting. He enjoys excitement, and I like that a lot. I already liked Shiva quite a bit, but with this chapter, I think Shiva could probably be my favorite. I think we could have a favorite here. But finishing off the chapter, Raiden says, "The will of humanity is shackled by that of the gods. I'll take our will and set it free." And he's doing like this pose. He looks like he's going to do a Hadouken or something. So either he's going to do like a Ki Blast or some shit, or he's about to do palm strikes, which I think he's going to do, because he hasn't really done any sumo moves yet. He's done a drop kick and a punch and kneeing. Not really stuff I think of when we talk about sumo, especially considering they talked about the 4 basic sumo techniques at the start of the fight. So I think we're going to start seeing Raiden pull out some real techniques here. Final thoughts. I think the focus on Raiden's muscles in the last chapter and sort of showing his back muscles in the start of this fight. I think Raiden's deal is going to be his anatomy. Raiden has like a fucking 10-pack or something. I don't think that's physically possible. So I think Raiden is built different from normal people. and that's going to be the explanation as to why he is so fucking strong. Um, um, Now, based on the typical order of events for the fights, next month we're going to get a backstory chapter, and it's almost definitely going to be Shiva's backstory, because we always get the god's backstory first. So far, at least. Who knows? Maybe they'll mix it up. I don't know what his backstory is going to be, but I hope it's the story about when he had to stop Kali from dancing the universe to death by letting her step on him. I will link a video below explaining that story. It's like the only other Hindu myth that I know anything about, but I think stuff with Kali is going to be mentioned at some point, because Kali is being portrayed as like this shy, timid character when she is like a violent murder god when in action. So I'd like to see that. I also think that myth would be an interesting choice for Shiva's backstory, because he is preserving the universe in that story by stopping Kali, which in the context of this story would involve saving humanity. So seeing Shiva back then basically saving mankind and contrasting it with now, where he's fighting to destroy mankind, I think that would be interesting. I mentioned earlier that I'm kind of on Team Shiva now, and just to sort of expand on that, I was in some discussions with people on the Discord server earlier today, and they were talking about how Raiden kind of seems like he's being built up as almost the villain of this fight, which I can kind of see. Raiden's moves are the ones that all have like the blacked out backgrounds and stuff, and he's just relentlessly attacking Shiva, which is like kind of villainous stuff. And also, Shiva's family is here, and I really don't want to see another character be killed in front of all their family members. So, I really hope Shiva pulls through with this. If Raiden does win, obviously that's a dub for humanity, so I'm not going to have a big problem with that. But Shiva's been kind of a staple for this series so far. He's been here since chapter 1. And for him to get killed off by the 5th chapter seems a little weird. I mean, it could certainly raise the stakes for the gods, because he would definitely be the biggest god to be killed so far. But I want to see more of Shiva. I like him. I don't want Shiva to die. So, I know they talked about Shiva's whole thing being the god of creation and destruction, is creation and destruction, and then rebirth. So it's possible, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is just a dumb theory, that if Shiva is killed, quote unquote, that he would be reincarnated or reborn as a different aspect of Shiva, depending on how this works. Like if he turned into, oh god, what was his name? He could turn into Vishnu, who I know was the god of preservation, which would kind of make sense, like if he changed his tune and wanted to save humanity now. Or preserve humanity. So if that happened, Raiden wins, but also Shiva doesn't die. But I don't know if that would feel cheap as an ending, the same way that like a draw would feel cheap. So we'll just have to see what happens. But with that, that's really all there is to talk about with this chapter. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. Check out some of my other reviews that I've been doing. I just uploaded my review for the Soul Society arc from Bleach, and I will be having more reviews for that coming out later on, and then I'll be doing reviews for other series. Follow me on Twitter. Keep up with any updates I make in relation to this channel. And with that, I'll see you around.